All right, listener, buckle up, because today we are diving deep into the world of the reptilian conspiracy theory.
Woo! Exciting.
Yeah, so we'll be taking a look at a YouTube video called Justin Bieber is a Reptile. The
Mm.
Reptilian Conspiracy Theory Explained WOCT Episode 4
Okay.
from the channel FING.
I've seen that one, yeah.
I know, right? Justin Bieber, a reptilian overlord. It sounds wild,
Sounds pretty crazy.
but trust me, it gets a lot weirder.
Oh, I bet.
We're going to be talking about shape-shifting reptilians, ancient wars, and even Princess Di gets thrown into the mix.
Wow.
So today we're going to trace the origins of this theory and examine some of the key pieces of evidence presented,
Awesome.
while of course maintaining a healthy dose of skepticism.
Got to keep that skepticism handy.
Always. So is this a new theory or does it have older roots?
Well, surprisingly, the first mentions of reptilian beings can be traced back to the 1930s and 40s.
Really? That early? I had no idea.
Yeah, way before the internet and even before David Icke became a household name.
So who are some of the early figures involved in this reptilian drama?
One of the first was a guy named George Warren Shufelt back in 1939.
Right.
He claimed to have discovered a network of tunnels under Los Angeles.
Tunnels? What's so special about tunnels?
Well, he claimed these tunnels were shaped like lizards.
Lizard-shaped tunnels. Okay, now we're talking.
Right, and he said these were evidence of an ancient reptilian civilization living beneath the city.
Wow, hold on a second. How did he even find these supposed lizard tunnels?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. He used something he called a radio X-ray machine.
A radio X-ray machine. Sounds a little far-fetched, even for the 30s.
Yeah, you're telling me. Ultimately, his claims were debunked.
Figured as much.
But not before they were picked up by newspapers and kind of, spread through word of mouth.
Makes sense. Those sorts of stories tend to grab people's attention.
Right, so even though his evidence was shaky, the story itself planted a seed. This idea of a hidden reptilian presence lurking beneath the surface.
It's like a seed that's hard to uproot once it's planted.
Exactly.
So is there anything else fueling this theory in those early years?
Well, just a year later, in 1940, a book called Mysteries of the Gobi was published.
Mysteries of the Gobi. Okay.
It mentioned reptilian beings with the ability to shapeshift.
Shape-shifting. That's a new twist.
Yeah, and get this, it also suggested an ancient war between humans and these reptilians.
Really?
Yeah, which forced the reptilians to go underground.
So we've got underground tunnels, shape-shifting, and ancient wars.
It's all coming together, right?
It's pretty wild how this theory taps into our fascination with the unknown.
Absolutely. This idea of hidden history, of powerful beings operating behind the scenes, it's always been alluring.
It's like we're drawn to those things just beyond the edge of our understanding.
It speaks to our fear of the unknown, but also to our desire for something more, something beyond our everyday reality.
Do you think it's just a coincidence that this theory emerged alongside major cultural shifts like the anxieties of the post-World War II era?
That's a great question. It was a time of huge change and uncertainty.
Right, with the nuclear age and the Cold War looming.
It makes sense that people would be looking for explanations, for someone or something to blame for their anxieties.
And maybe those anxieties combined with a growing interest in UFO sightings made the idea of powerful reptilian beings seem a bit more believable.
It's definitely possible. Take the Roswell incident in 1947, for example.
Ah, yes, the infamous Roswell incident.
The official explanation, the crash weather balloon, didn't convince everyone.
Of course not.
And rumors of a downed alien spacecraft started circulating.
So those lizard-shaped tunnels under LA, even if they were debunked, suddenly didn't seem so far-fetched anymore.
Right, and this whole thing fueled speculation about extraterrestrial life, and the image of reptilian aliens started to creep into the public's mind.
Did this idea gain more traction in the following years?
Oh, absolutely. In 1967, there's the case of Herbert Schirmer.
Schirmer.
He was a police officer who claimed to have been abducted by reptilian beings.
A police officer. That definitely adds another layer to the story.
Right. And his profession gave his claims some credibility.
People tend to trust those in positions of authority.
Exactly. And his story made headlines.
I can imagine.
He even described seeing a snake and wings emblem on the chests of his abductors.
A snake and wings emblem.
Yeah, which has become a pretty significant symbol within the reptilian theory.
So it seems by the late 1960s, all the elements were in place.
You could say that.
Lizard-shaped tunnels, tales of ancient wars, UFO sightings, and even an alien abduction story involving reptilians.
It's all there.
But I'm guessing things didn't really explode until the 1990s, right?
You're absolutely right. That's when David Icke enters the scene.
David Icke. the name that's practically synonymous with the reptilian theory.
Exactly, and his arrival took things to a whole new level. That's right, David Icke, he really blew things wide open.
He did. But Icke wasn't always focused on reptilians. He had quite a varied career path.
Yeah, he did. Footballer, spokesperson for the Green Party in the UK.
Wow, that's quite a range.
It wasn't until later that he became an author and public speaker, and that's when he started talking about, the truth about the world.
The truth, with air quotes, I'm sensing this is where the reptilians enter the picture.
You got it. And that truth, according to Icke, was heavily intertwined with these reptilian humanoids.
That is quite a leap from environmental activism to reptilian conspiracies. What was the turning point for him?
It seems like his book, The Biggest Secret, published in 1999, was the catalyst. It basically laid out his version of the reptilian conspiracy theory.
And it took off from there.
Oh yeah, it became like a foundational text for believers.
So let's get to the heart of it. What exactly did Icke claim in The Biggest Secret?
Well, he definitely built upon those earlier ideas we talked about,
Okay.
but he also added some new elements. His core claim is that reptilian beings, specifically from the Alpha Draconian star system, have infiltrated human society.
The Alpha Draconian star system sounds pretty sci-fi.
I know, right?
And how do these reptilian beings infiltrate society? Do they just blend in?
Well, according to Icke, they can shapeshift. And get this, he says they do it by consuming human flesh and blood.
Okay, that's a pretty disturbing image.
Yeah, it adds a whole other level of creepiness to the theory.
And where are these shape-shifting reptilians hiding out? Icke must have some ideas.
He does. He believes they hold positions of power in governments, media, financial institutions, you name it.
So basically, they're controlling the world from behind the scenes.
That's the gist of it. They're pulling the strings for their own evil purposes.
It's like a global conspiracy orchestrated by lizard people. Sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Right. It's both terrifying and kind of exciting, which I think is part of the appeal.
I can see how that would resonate with people, especially in times of uncertainty. But where does Icke get these ideas from? Is there any historical or cultural basis for his claims?
Well, Icke's pretty clever about connecting his theory to existing beliefs and narratives.
Okay, how so?
For example, he points to serpent deities in various mythologies as evidence for the ancient presence of reptilians.
So like those snake gods in ancient Egypt.
Exactly, or the serpent gods in Hindu mythology, like Sheshnag and Vasuki.
So he's saying these ancient myths aren't just stories. They're distorted memories of a time when reptilians ruled the earth.
He's arguing that these myths are echoes of a forgotten history, a time when humans were basically slaves to these reptilian overlords.
That's an interesting way to frame it. He's taking these cultural narratives and weaving them into his own theory. It gives it a sense of legitimacy.
Absolutely, and it's not just ancient mythology. He also links the reptilian theory to other popular conspiracy theories like the Illuminati and secret societies.
So it all becomes this interconnected web of beliefs, with the reptilians at the center of this grand conspiracy.
It's like a one-stop shop for conspiracy theories. They all lead back to the reptilians.
That's a great analogy, and I think that interconnectedness is a big part of what makes this theory so appealing to some. It provides a simple explanation for a complex world.
Right, it's like having one key that unlocks all the doors, one answer to all the big questions.
And speaking of big questions, the reptilian theory doesn't shy away from controversial figures, like Princess Diana.
Oh yeah, the Princess Diana connection is a big one. Within the reptilian theory community, there's this belief that the British royal family are reptilians.
We know that conspiracy theories often target those in power, but why Princess Diana specifically?
Well, proponents of the theory point to Diana's alleged relationship with a South African shaman.
Okay.
They claim she confided in him, using coded language to refer to the royal family as lizards and reptiles.
So they're saying Diana was aware of the royal family's true reptilian nature and was trying to expose them.
That's the idea. It feeds into this narrative of a brave woman speaking truth to power, even at great personal risk.
Of course, there's no actual proof of these claims.
None whatsoever. It's all based on speculation and interpretation of anecdotal accounts.
But even without evidence, the story resonates with those who believe in the reptilian theory.
Oh, absolutely. It confirms their suspicions about those in power.
And it's not just whispers and coded messages. The reptilian theory also uses this concept of predictive programming to explain the prevalence of reptilian imagery in pop culture.
Predictive programming. That sounds a little out there.
It does. Tell me more.
Basically, the theory suggests that all those reptilian or lizard-like creatures we see in movies and TV shows are a deliberate attempt to desensitize us to the idea of reptilian beings.
So the more we see these images, even in fiction, the more we're primed to accept their existence in the real world.
Exactly. It's like a subtle form of psychological manipulation, according to the theory.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we're exposed to the idea, the more likely we are to believe it.
Right, and that just fuels the theory even further.
It's amazing how the reptilian theory connects all these different elements: ancient mythology, modern pop culture, real-world events, and even personal anxieties into this one big narrative.
It's quite a tapestry.
But even with all these threads, the question remains: why does this theory, with its lack of evidence, continue to have such a hold on people's imaginations?
That's the million-dollar question, and one we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll delve into the possible psychological factors that contribute to the reptilian theory's enduring popularity. And we're back for the final part of our reptilian deep dive.
Back to those lizard people.
Lizard people, shapeshifters, you name it. We've been talking about it all.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But now it's time to tackle the big question. Why does this theory, with zero hard evidence, still resonate with people?
It is a head-scratcher, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's one thing to be entertained by a good conspiracy theory.
Sure.
But to actually believe it, that's another thing entirely.
Right, so what's the deal? Are people just gullible? Or is there something deeper going on?
Yeah, what's the psychology behind it all?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of gullibility. I
Correct.
think it's way more complicated than that. Remember, humans are meaning-making machines.
We do love to find patterns and explanations.
Exactly. We're always trying to make sense of the world, even when things seem totally random.
So maybe conspiracy theories, even the really out there ones, offer a kind of comfort.
I think so. They give us a framework to understand things that might otherwise feel overwhelming or just too complicated.
So with the reptilian theory, it's like there's this hidden hand controlling everything. It provides a sense of order.
Exactly. It tells us that things aren't random, that there's a plan, even if that plan is being run by, evil lizard people.
Right. So instead of feeling powerless in the face of global events, we can just point at the reptilians and say, it's all their fault.
Exactly. It's so much easier than actually trying to grapple with the complexities of the real world.
You mentioned earlier that people are drawn to simple explanations.
Mhm.
Do you think that's a big factor here?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the world is messy and complicated.
It really is.
And trying to understand everything is exhausting. The reptilian theory just offers a simple answer. It's the lizard people.
One big bad guy to blame for everything.
Easy to follow, easy to remember, easy to share.
And that ease of transmission is probably key to how these theories spread.
Right. Absolutely. If it's too complex, it's not going to catch on.
Makes sense. So we've got the desire for simple explanations, the need for order and chaos, but what about trust? Or the lack thereof?
That's another huge piece of the puzzle. When people feel like those in power aren't being honest.
Yeah, like you're being lied to.
Exactly. They're more likely to start looking for alternative explanations, even if those explanations seem far-fetched.
It's that us versus them mentality.
Right. They're the reptilian elite,
Right.
pulling the strings from the shadows.
And social media just amplifies all of this, doesn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. All those echo chambers online, that's where these theories really thrive.
It's like a self-perpetuating cycle. The more you see it, the more you believe it, and the more you share it.
A snowball effect.
Exactly. But even with all that, the need for order, the distrust, I still think there's something more, something almost primal that draws people to these theories.
You're right. I think it boils down to our fascination with the unknown.
We love a good mystery.
We do. Humans are curious by nature, always searching for hidden truths.
It's like that feeling you get when you're reading a ghost story or watching a horror movie.
The thrill of the unknown.
Yeah, that part of us that wants to believe, even if it scares us a little.
The reptilian theory, with its shape-shifting beings and ancient conspiracies, it definitely plays into that.
So it's this mix of factors, the desire for simple answers, distrust of authority, and our fascination with the mysterious.
All coming together to create the perfect environment for a theory like this to take hold.
It really shows how complex we are as humans, how our beliefs are shaped by so many different things.
Not always rational, that's for sure.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. The origins, the claims, the cultural connections, and even the psychology behind the reptilian theory.
It's been a pretty thorough deep dive.
It has, and hopefully it's given our listeners some insight into not just this theory, but the whole world of conspiracy theories.
Why they're so popular, why they stick around.
So listener, as you go about your day, remember to keep an open mind, but don't forget your critical thinking skills.
Question everything, look for evidence, and remember, sometimes the best stories aren't true.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring.